Hi, and welcome to the Bookkeepers Podcast. Today, I am so lucky to be joined by the lovely Jason Blackman. Hi, Jason, how are you?
Hello, Joe. I'm really good, and thank you very much for having me.
You are so very welcome. Jason, we met in life, real life, last
We
year
did.
when you were very, very brave and came along to a bookkeepers retreat in Wales.
I remember it well.
And it was there was loads of women, as
Yeah.
is usually the case with our membership,
Yeah.
but you were very brave and you decided to come along. And it was a great event. We had such a good time.
Brilliant.
And it was so lovely and so nice to meet you. Hello to everyone. If you're joining us now, please let us know in the chat if you're here. Say hi. Let us know where you're joining us from. It's great to see you all. So, Jason, today we're going to be talking about pricing from a bookkeeper's perspective.
My favourite subject.
Your favourite subject, good, because we're often in the 6 month success. In the Six Figure Bookkeepers Club, the questions that come up about pricing all the time.
Yeah.
People don't have the confidence to price the way that they feel they should, and maybe they go back to hourly rate because they feel like that gives them a bit more confidence. Sure. We're going to talk all about your pricing journey today.
Okay. Yeah.
But before we do, Jason, do you want to let us know, when did you get into and why did you get into this bookkeeping and accountancy space?
Okay, so when I left school, I think I always wanted to work in an office, always wanted to do something based around figures. But that was kind of it. When I left school, it was, I want to work in an office. That was kind of as far as it went, really. And I was very lucky. I left school and started work the next week in a local, it was a farm office, actually. And I was sort of doing the general admin, answering the phone, typing letters, etc., etc. And I was doing that for a good couple of years, maybe 3 years. And the business was actually owned by two brothers, and the brothers decided to split. So one business stayed where I currently worked, and another business sort of branched off into another part of Hampshire where I lived. And I was chosen to go with the other brother to sort of move. And it was said to me, basically, Jason, you'll be doing the accounts. Okay. So I'd never ever done accounts before, but I was definitely interested in it. As I say, I've always been very interested in numbers. So I was almost, I guess, thrown in at the deep end, I suppose, when it comes to accounts. But I started work on the accounts, and I was working on this sort of it was called Hilton Nomis. It was a farm-based accounting package purely for farms, and it was good. I enjoyed it, but I was doing all these things like profit and loss reports and balance sheets and trial balances, but I didn't know what that meant. And I thought, I really need to sort of understand what I'm doing. I can do it, but I want to understand the sort of how it all works in the background. So I started an evening course at college. Started at back GCSE, so it shows how long ago it was. GCSE O-level accountancy, and then moved on to AAT. I was at college several years, and absolutely loved it. I mean, double entry bookkeeping, I was the biggest fan in the world of that. I absolutely loved debits and credits, which was quite surprising for all the other students because most of them hated them.
Absolutely. So when you got qualified, what did you do then? Did you stay at the farm?
I stayed at the farm for a little while, and then I guess the lure of the accountancy practice came along, and I went to work for a practice, and I was just in my absolute element doing bank recs, and it was great fun. And I worked there for maybe 4 or 5 years, and I suppose you get to that stage when you're employed that you see how much money you're making the boss, and you think, hang on, I can actually do this myself. So it got to July 2001, and I got started my practice, got my very first client as a sole trader. So just sort of worked out from there. That was, say, 2001. So I think I built the business up to about 200 clients, I think, by about 2013, I think. So about 12 years later, I had about 200 clients, and so, doing everything, I guess, as well as bookkeeping. I was doing, annual accounts, corporation tax, personal tax, payroll, VAT returns, all the standard stuff, I suppose. And plodding along very nicely until 2013, when unfortunately my wife became quite ill in 2013, and she became so poorly that I almost had to become a full-time carer for her. So in about 2015, 2016, I just decided that I couldn't cope with the practice and looking after her full time. She was obviously far more important. So I sold the practice, and yeah, that's something I would research a lot if I ever did that again, because I think I got a bad price for it, you know. But I guess I was in a bad space at that time, you know, and I was panicking, and a friend of mine offered me a price for the practice, and I just took it, which in hindsight was a disastrous mistake. But anyway, so I looked after Carol for a couple of years, and unfortunately in 2017 she passed away. She was only 40, so it was quite devastating for everyone. So I had to decide what I wanted to do then, and having sort of sold the practice a couple of years earlier, I thought, where do I go from here? And I ended up working for a software company on their support desk for a couple of years. I was very, very good friends with the MD of a tax return software package, and he offered me a job on the support desk, and I was there 2 or 3 years, and in the background started to build the practice up again. And sort of fast forward to 2018, I met my now wife Claire, and she's now joined me on board with the practice as well. She's director as well. And here we are, in July 2023, and we've got about 125 clients, I suppose, now. So I'm quite proud of how we sort of come back from nothing to build things up again, you know. And she works in the business sort of 2-3 days a week, and she's got another part-time job as well. And so still offering all the standard services, but I would say, Joe, if I'm honest, bookkeeping is my favorite. I'm a qualified accountant, but I cannot get away from the fact that I love bookkeeping, you know.
It gets to us all. It's like a bug, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Oh my goodness, Jason, what a story, what a journey.
It's been a journey.
The amount of resilience and learnings you've had along the way.
Yeah.
Going back to that first practice where you had built 200 clients.
Yeah.
Can I ask, did you have a team? What support did you have? What did that look like?
It was, I would say, basically me. I had a subcontractor that would help me out with compliance and the year-end stuff. I would say back then I wasn't too focused on bookkeeping. I'd say the practice how it is today is more bookkeeping than it was back then. It was a lot more sort of annual accounts. So I don't mean it was easier, but it was, there wasn't so much sort of workload, even though there was a bigger number of clients. I guess the workload was less. So I did it all myself. And, that's maybe one of the things that maybe a lesson where you do need to get help. And when things happen, like, happened with Carol, that, I had no option really other than to sell the practice, because I had no one else, I had no one else to help me and to sort of pass things on to. And with 200 clients, I didn't have the time to sort of hand it down gradually, to someone. I had to make a real snap decision, but yeah, it was just me. So, but how it looks now, we subcontract out our payroll. So we've got lots and lots of payroll clients. We subcontract all that out. I have got another accountant that helps me as well. And as I say, Claire's been brilliant. She does a lot of the bookkeeping and a lot of the admin. We've just installed Accountancy Manager now, which is really, really good. And she's set that up right from scratch for us as well, I should say. So yeah, I've never had what you call a team, I suppose, really. I've subcontracted work out, and as I say, I've got another accountant that I work with. But apart from that, it really is just us two at the moment.
So interesting. I love understanding people's structures and what they're building, and the services, and I can I'm thinking about like the team that I've got now, and it's a mixture of subcontractors and some staff, and we're about 12 or 13 I think, and then lots of part-time as well, but we don't have anywhere near I suppose we're at like the 80 client mark, but then we offer like that full accountancy department function, which you say is very labor heavy. And so it fascinates me when I see that there's businesses out there that have got 200, 700 clients, and I'm like, well, how do you do it? But it's because like you say, you're a qualified accountant, and you can do those year-end accounts, and people may have their own bookkeeping in-house.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
And you're doing that. So it's just like understanding what that looks like, and it's really interesting. But I suppose your journey shows that, that entrepreneurial myth. If anyone's ever read The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, he talks about exactly what you said, Jason, about we have this entrepreneurial myth. Why am I making this money for the boss when I can do this myself?
Yeah.
But what you have done what you did back then was created a job for yourself. You became your own boss. Absolutely. You didn't have to answer to anyone else.
Yeah.
But you hadn't created a business that could sustain you when you needed flexibility.
Yeah.
And it's about, I suppose, us thinking these days, well, what is it that you want? You can absolutely create your own job and be self-employed and have that. But that doesn't always give you the flexibility that you might want. And that's all good. It's just knowing what you're creating. And because if you'd have, like now, the way you're talking about the practice you're building now, with more support, with more, like if you've got a accounting manager, some systems and processes.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're building a more grown-up business.
Yeah. I mean, so I didn't tell you, Claire unfortunately lost her first husband as well. He just woke up one day and didn't survive the day. He had a heart attack right in front of Claire. He was 38. So, we both know, Joe, how fragile life can be. So we said from the start, we don't want to build the practice that we're both working 40 hours a week. That's not the goal at all. And we don't want £1 million turnover. We want enough money so that we can have a good life and enjoy life, but we don't want to be working all the hours under the sun either. We want a nice balance of being able to afford to do the things we want to do, but having that time as well, because I think time is just as valuable as money. And I think, losing Carol at 40, losing Chris at 38, we've certainly learnt that time is so precious, and now I've just turned 50, so it's kind of a good time to evaluate how things are, and so I think our goal is we want to build the practice up a little bit more, definitely, and make it more automated, some more systems in place. Maybe we subcontract a bit more out, just so that both of us aren't burning ourselves out and we're not working all the hours that we that are available to us. We want some free time as well,
Absolutely. I mean, you may get it as well. I have people say, what, you work with your other half? How do you do that? But actually, it's all part of that. I've started to realize it's not like a work-life balance. It's just life. If I'm working or if I'm watching telly, I'm still, checking notifications. It's just life. And so the fact that I get to work with my husband means that we get to spend more time together, because I'm always going to be working because I love it. And, I'm so pleased that you've, managed to bring her into the business and that you're supporting each other and building a business that's going to work for you. And I know you both love to travel and like go and see the world, and that's your focus. And,
it is totally.
It's great that you can do that. Okay. Well, let's get down to it. So pricing.
Yes.
Tell us about your pricing journey. Maybe, I don't know if you're pricing the same now as you did with your business that you started, or how did you start?
Absolutely not.
Okay. How did you start?
So when I started, Joe, I didn't really know any different. As far as I was concerned, and I guess this is the same for most people, sort of 20 years ago, hourly rates were the thing, and when I got my first bookkeeping client, I quoted them £15 an hour, and there was a bit of £15 an hour, really? So, but bearing in mind this was back in sort of 2002, 2003. But so sort of things progressed on from there, and I got another really big client in Portsmouth, where I used to live, and I used to go in there and do the bookkeeping, and I quoted them £20 an hour. So I'm going to try a bit higher than 15. And the guy said to me, £20 an hour, that's nowhere near enough. That's far too low. So it's quite incredible. These hourly rates, they're almost, I think we sort of, we battle with these in our own head so much, I was literally in the situation where one client thought £15 an hour was too much, and another client 6 months later thought £20 an hour was far too little, so it was a real struggle even back then to know what to charge. And I just went by sort of what the market rate was back then, and just charging an hourly rate. And I do think back then, and bookkeeping was so much more manual, back in the early 2000s. We're talking about a black sack full of receipts, and I'm sitting in the corner there with Sage Desktop, plugging them all in. And so it's quite right that you charge an hourly rate then, because that's what it is. You are taking that time and you're doing everything. There's no bank fee. There's no automated, receipts capture. There's nothing, you're doing everything. So I think hourly rates were perfectly justified back in the early 2000s. Getting them right and getting the right figure was another story, But if we sort of fast forward to today, my personal opinion, I know this causes so much controversy, hourly rates, and people are very passionate about still charging hourly rates. But to me, I don't really think they're relevant now, because I think so much of what we do is automated. I mean, I use Xero. I'm a Xero fan, absolutely love it. And let's just take bank feeds. I mean, say in the old days we didn't have bank feeds, so we'd have to manually enter all the bank payments and all the bank receipts, and that was time. We were taking time. But now we're just we're switching on, we're logging into Xero and it's all there, so we don't have to do that. But because we don't have to do that, I don't think that should be to our detriment. I still think we need to charge a fair price for what's happening, even though a lot of it is automated. We're not doing it ourselves. But so I guess in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is this Sage job back in the early 2000s would have taken 8 hours to do a month's worth of bookkeeping. And if now using Xero, using automation, using bank feeds, using receipt capture, it takes 2 hours, then I don't see why we should only charge 2 hours if we've previously charged 8 for it. I guess that's a pretty long-winded way of saying it, but I just don't think now hourly rates are really relevant. I think you can still give the client a brilliant service, probably a better one than before, because so much of it is automated. And the bank recs. Well, you don't know. I know bank feeds can still have dodgy days.
That's the thing, isn't it? We're still, we are managing the process of the bank feeds. We're checking on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like you say, the client's still getting the same result for the 8 hours or the 2 hours. Now, you might not charge exactly the same as the 8 hours, but it should be. It's more elevated because of your knowledge on how to use the automations and things, and the value is still there. So. Yeah, it's a really interesting conversation to have, and I do get that, and it is the difference between this kind of job and when we start out, it's easy to think, well, I was earning that in my employed role, and I want to replace that income. So if I charge double what I was getting there, that feels amazing. But then when we realise that you've got insurances, and then you need to take on an admin member of staff, and then practice software, you're like, wow. Okay, I'm now earning less. And we see this so often. So we have to price differently. It's interesting you said that about the different perception on the hourly rate. I had it, and it's the same with clients. I find we had it last week where we were delivering the information on tax bills, and one client's tax bill was massive, and she was like, yeah, well, the more money I make, the bigger the tax bill. And she was fine with it. Whereas we told someone else, he had his class 1A on his P11D, and it was a couple £100. They have the same turnover business, like multi-million. And he went, well, I don't know why I'm running this business. I might as well just give up and give all my money to HMRC. And it's really, so we are, and I was saying this to my team, that we're dealing with mindset. And actually part of my ideal client is I want the people that are like, I've paid tax and it's a good thing. And it's definitely that pricing thing as well. And we need to find the clients that are in alignment with that and see the value in what we do. But it is down to us to kind of express it and explain it. And maybe I do find when I do a proposal these days and say this is the monthly fee, people are happy that it's not an hourly rate because they don't know how long it should take anyway.
Well, that's right. And I guess that's another two, as far as I'm concerned, two disadvantages to hourly rates. One of them is exactly that, in that if you're charging the client, let's say every month based on the hours that you've done, the client's always going to get a surprise bill. And, I know that's one real bugbear with clients is surprise bills. And, surely they're going to be much happier if they've got a fixed monthly fee and they know exactly what they're going to pay. And better for us as well. We know what we're going to get, the sort of hourly rate billing system just comes out as a surprise to the client and comes out as a surprise to us. We don't know what we're going to bill, we don't know how long it's going to take. And there was another disadvantage that I was thinking of. What was it?
That's fine. But it'll come back. I'm sure it'll come back. But
you will.
So when you started this most recent practice, did you start again with hourly rate, or did you reprice differently from the beginning?
Reprice differently from the beginning. So that's when I discovered Go Proposal. So I am a big Go Proposal fan, I must admit. It's brilliant. The fact to be able to drill down into so much detail with the services that you're providing, particularly with bookkeeping, I think is really, really important, because no two bookkeeping jobs are the same, and I've heard another way of pricing bookkeeping is to base it on the client's turnover. So I don't know, 1% of their annual turnover is what your annual bookkeeping fee is, but that's flawed as well, surely, because just because they've got £1 million turnover, they might only raise 3 invoices a month, and you might have, as I have got a guy that's turning over 100 grand, but there's masses and masses of paperwork. So I don't really see that really working either, a percentage of turnover. And another method I have seen, and there's an American guy, Dan Pasquarino, I think he's called. He's just a sole trader. He's turning over about 200k, but he's working all the hours under the sun. But he charges $3 a transaction. Now, charging per transaction, I'm not really sure if that's a good move or not. So I think to myself, how would you quote someone if you're taking on a new client, you're having a prospect meeting, how do you know what to quote? But his idea is, when you're in the prospect meeting, you ask them if they'll give you access to QuickBooks or Xero, whatever they're using. You go back through the last 3 months transactions, add them all up, divide that by 3, and that's the amount of transactions you charge per month times $3 per transaction. But you've still got the problem of, well, suddenly the transaction value might, the transaction volume might really go down, or then it might go up. So you've still got to keep your eye on that, really, haven't you? I guess there's no foolproof way of doing this, but I just think hourly rates are massively flawed, and percentage of turnover I think is flawed, and charging per transaction may be a little bit better, but I think pricing on the individual components of the bookkeeping, like you can in Go Proposal, I think is a lot fairer.
Yeah, it feels like it's the best option we've got, even if it's not perfect. And it's definitely, and that is something, Jason, that I think lots of us have. If anyone's using Go Proposal or have got a system in place to create a proposal, and then we start doing the work, and we've had it this week. We've got a new client and started now. This will make you laugh. You know what you're saying about three sales invoices, so £1 million company, 3. Well, so I charged him as per Go Proposal. He said up to 5 sales invoices a month. Brilliant. He said, but he uses projects. Okay, so we're going to allocate receipts and things so he can claim back the expenses to the clients he's sending this invoice to. One invoice had 40 expenses on it,
right?
And I'm charging him for one invoice for that.
Right.
So there's always, we have to. And this is why we need to step away from being the operations in the business and doing all the work, because this is a full-time job, making sure that there's no scope creep and that you are pricing effectively and correctly. So I'm going to have a conversation, with him about the fact that, well, when you said there was 5 invoices, I didn't realize it was going to be all this work. So there's things that we need to do. So when you're in the sales process, how do you find the way that you're pricing at the moment? Are you pricing per transaction for sales and purchase invoices and bank rec, and then kind of adding, monthly fees for compliance? Is that how you built up your Go Proposal?
Yes, and before I answer that, I've just thought of the other disadvantage that I was going to say is the fact that us as bookkeepers, we're capped on what we can earn. If we're charging hourly rates, then we're totally capped. We only work a certain amount of hours per week, so by definition, we're only going to have a finite amount of money that we can earn, and I don't think that's right either. But in answer to your question, most of the fees that I quote for, where it's bookkeeping, I am doing the compliance work as well. So I will end up quoting for the whole job. So for the bookkeeping plus the compliance as well. So I'll give the prospect a sort of, just a sort of monthly figure. Quite often they'll want a breakdown of what it's made up of, but 9 times out of 10 I'll use Go Proposal. I don't sort of quote for my bookkeeping separately to the compliance, because I don't really have any clients that I just do bookkeeping, for. Most of the clients that I do bookkeeping for, I'm doing the compliance as well. So that, I guess, that issue or problem doesn't really come up. And I just wrote this. I must say this. I just wrote this down as a sort of tip as well, which I do a lot when I quote clients. Is I always quote them or no, I quote them the figure, but then I say what the actual cost is going to be, because they can always claim tax relief on my fees, on my monthly fees. They're going to put it through their accounts, obviously. So if they're a limited company, they're going to get 19% corporation tax relief on the fees. So I always say to them, okay, it's £500 a month, but it's only going to cost you £400 a month because you get the tax relief on the fee. So the actual, £100 per month of that fee is paid by HMRC effectively. And I think sometimes that can make the difference between them saying yes or no.
Wow, that is a new one, Jason. I've not heard of that before. That's a really good idea. That takes me back to when I was trying to sell Miss Selfridge's credit cards and say you could save 10%, which is like £8 on your shopping. Like giving them the tangible saving that they're making is a really good idea.
Let's say the tax saving is 20% tax saving. That's quite considerable, Joe, as well. Say, £500 a month. If they're paying me £500 a month, they're actually only paying me £400 a month because they get £100 a month tax relief. And suddenly your fee going from £500 a month down to £400 a month is quite significant.
It really is a big sell. Nicola said here that Jason sounds like he's confident in his pricing and prospects will pick up on that and he'll get less pushback, and works for her as well. So absolutely, I think it's whatever you're going into the conversation with, being really confident in what it is that you're doing, the service that you're offering. And this is why when we talk about the 6-month success program, you want to know what your service is, what your onboarding method is, like the next steps. You're confident in the journey you're going to take the client on, because then they'll feel that confidence come through you. So with regards to, we start off with giving somebody a quote. They say yes, we onboard them, and a few months down the line, we're doing the work and we think, oh, it's feeling like there's a bit more here. How do you approach? What's your process for approaching clients about repricing? Maybe do you do it? How often do you do it? Do you do it annually? Do you do it more than that? What's your approach?
So I'm ashamed to say that I do it annually. And when I've listened to your interviews, your podcast with James Ashford, and when he used to say reprice every 3 months, I used to think, what is he going on about? You cannot possibly do that. But like I said just now about this guy that's quoting $3 a transaction, suddenly things can change. Business for the client can pick up, and that means that our work as bookkeepers picks up. So I haven't done it yet. It is done annually at the moment, Joe, but I think the 3-month thing is a really, really good thing to do, because you could quote for you could give them the quote based on the bookkeeping at the moment, but after 3 months, if that suddenly changes, it suddenly increases, then you've got potentially 9 months of undercharging before the next fee review. So it's the 3-month thing is not something we do at the moment, but I think now, and James drills it into us so much that it really is the sensible thing to do. There's no doubt about it.
We can't be supporting other people's businesses and losing money for 9 months, can we? It just, and I was, thinking about this new client of mine. I'm having a conversation with him this month. He only started last month. It can't wait to 3 months, because those extra 40 transactions per one sales invoice, I can't sustain that. It's costing my team time and money. And I do actually, it's about, I think, setting the scene in the original proposal meeting. And I do always say, I'm going on what you've said. I did actually have access to his 0 transactions.
Right.
More for me, because I didn't look in and I saw how many sales invoices there were. I didn't drill in and had, and look at all of the, so that's, I'm learning. He's a different type of client and I've never done that before. So we live and we learn. But I do have to set the scene and say, look, this is what the proposal is. Until we actually do the bookkeeping, we don't really know what's involved.
Sure. Yep.
And we will have to revisit and reprice. Actually, he's quite interested. He actually come to me and said, love the service so far. I'd like to go have management accounts as well, please.
Okay.
So I'm like, well, book in for a meeting, because I was going to talk to you as well. Anyway, so it's interesting. And that's important as well. I let everybody know everything they can have, the full service, and then we can pick out what they actually want right now. But when you've already sold them everything, they can think, they know about it. And I say this to new clients all the time. They come to me, they say, my accountant doesn't give me this. and I say to them, have you asked them for it?
Yeah.
You know that they can't give, because I find lots of us in this industry just don't let people know what we can do. So they go elsewhere looking for it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I'm not sponsored by GoPropose or anything on this podcast, but I think it does allow you to do that. I think even if we're not using GoProposer, we need some sort of system, so that we can drill down into what we're offering, because just to say we're offering bookkeeping, which is X amount a month, it's so difficult to quote, based on that. You need so many more, so much more detail on what the job entails before you're able to give a sensible quote, I think.
Absolutely. When we reprice, or the biggest fear that every bookkeeper has is that the client's going to leave us. Okay. So
Yep.
have you had that? Have you repriced anybody? I mean, you're doing annual reviews. So when you do the annual review, you're still going to have that difficult conversation once a year,
Yeah.
even if it's not
Yeah.
once a quarter.
Yeah.
Have you had it where people have said, that's it, I'm leaving you?
Not many. I suppose we've been quite lucky in that all my clients are lovely, of course they are. But the really lovely clients, they've all stayed with me. I've had a couple of clients leave. Yes, it is due to fees, but after they've left, I sometimes think, am I better off without them? That's not being horrible. We've all got clients that are like that, I mean, for example, I had one client leave me. She was a hairdresser. I was charging her quite a low fee, I think. And she's going back to what you said earlier on in the conversation. She used to have a go at me because her tax bill was so high. That was, well, why is it so high? Well, because you've earned this money. That's why it's high. Well, can you get it down for me? Well, I've got it down as much as I can, but I can't. So, she said, in that case, I'm going to go to another accountant. Because I can't afford to pay you when you're supposed to be reducing my tax bill. It always sounds a bit strange to me, but it was quite funny. One of my friends is friends with her on Facebook, and the next thing, a week later, she was in the Maldives. But anyway, But so the clients that have left me, I sometimes think maybe I am better off without them, because I think I haven't changed the prices in GoProposal, and I don't think they're expensive, if I'm perfectly honest. I mean, being an accountant as well, some of the prices that I see for compliance are quite frightening. I took over a client, just a limited company, quite a high turnover, but his compliance fee was just under 7,000, and I don't see how that can be justified, really, to be honest. But there's a fair amount of work there, but it's not an overly complicated business, but I guess this just demonstrates how much of a minefield pricing is, doesn't it, really?
It does.
Bookkeeping, I know we're mainly talking about bookkeeping, and I think GoProposal is great for that. But I also think as accountants, the annual compliance fees, there's so much variation, Joe, in from what I've seen in my 20 odd years of practice. I'm talking that you'll get the sort of accountants that advertise on Facebook, we can do your annual accounts and corporation tax for £150. Well, no, you can't, and then you get up to, this client that I'm talking about, whose previous accountant charged them 7,000. So I guess it's the right fee between 150 and 7,000. I mean, it's so difficult, it really is difficult.
It really is. And that's why we shouldn't be always comparing ourselves. You've got to think about what is the value that you are giving, and you got to feel confident to, I don't think we ever feel 100% confident. I think it's, we got to push ourselves a bit, because we're never going to be like, oh, well, I think I'm amazing, and everyone's, we need to push ourselves. So if you're using this system and you're going through and charging them bit by transaction, bit by value on all of these, do you advertise your pricing anywhere, or do you have like on your website like prices from or anything like that, or is it all just done through discovery call?
It is. I don't do any advertising. I again, because we're pricing in such detail, I think it's really difficult to give a price on your website, because 9 times out of 10, when you go through the proposal process with the client, it's going to be different. I guess you can say from, but that's any one of us could do that, And
that's, I have been thinking about that, because there's been a few times where I've taken on clients and they're smaller and they still need, because of the kind of outsourced accounts department we offer, they still need the same amount of people to touch it, whether it's payroll, VAT and everything. So I've been thinking about, whether I'd like to have prices from £500 a month or something like that, just so that I'm setting a kind of, something. But it's interesting to know. I did at the beginning when I started, I was like, sole traders 160 a month. Sole traders with VAT 260 and limited companies 360. Well, now I've got some clients that are over 2,000 a month. So I'd have been so undercharging, it would have been ridiculous, like to declare my fees like that then. Yeah. But maybe a from price could work in some cases.
I think you've definitely got the advantage there if you want to just work with a minimum fee, I guess, really, which I know a lot of bookkeepers and accountants do that. They won't take on clients for less than, I don't know, let's say £200 a month, So putting that from £200 a month on the website, that is an advantage because, you're saying, we don't take clients on that will pay less than £200 a month. So I think that's good from that point of view. But I just worry also that you put from £200 a month, you get a prospect, they want this, and this comes out at £600 a month. When they say it says £200 a month on your website, that's the only thing I would worry about having prices on the website. But
maybe minimum fee.
Yeah, I think if you're charging a minimum fee, it could work brilliantly.
Yeah, I like that idea. So, the whole pricing conversation is a massive one.
Yeah.
But do you have any advice, Jason, as someone that's maybe thinking about, either setting their prices for the first time or having a conversation? Maybe they've got a client that they know they are undercharging in the moment. They've got to have that conversation. Have you got any words of wisdom for someone that's been in this industry for a long time?
I just think, to go back to this dreaded word again, go proposal, but I just think it makes so much sense because it's consistent. That's what we want, consistent pricing here. I wouldn't advocate starting off at hourly rates because I just think it sets you off on a slippery slope, really, I would say go, you could try out Go Proposal, try the free trial. I don't think it's really expensive because I think there's so much value you can glean from it. And, I just think, your prices can change so much. When I put my work and based it through Go Proposal, when I sort of started again, if you like, the difference in what I compared that to what I used to charge, and it was night and day, Joe, so I know people will look at Go Proposal and think, well, I think it starts at £60 a month. That's quite a lot of money. Yes, it is. But, you can just one or two clients to price or reprice and suddenly you've got that money back, I just think it's really, really important to do that. And I just don't like hourly rates. I would not advise doing that. As we've said, there's many other methods for doing it, but I still like the fact that you can drill down into so much detail and that you're charging based on real life. You know exactly what you're doing for the client, and you can put that information into this software and it will give you that price to charge. So I would just always say just either take out the free trial of Go Proposal or just bite the bullet and subscribe, and just whether you're starting off with brand new clients or whether you're repricing, just to get that consistent pricing. And that's the key, because I just think if you've got inconsistent pricing and you are using hourly rates or some other method, it's just so easy to trip up, and a new client will come along, a new prospect will come along. Well, how do I price this? And if you've got a system in place to be able to do it, it suddenly makes the whole proposal process so easy to do.
Absolutely. And, I used to worry about the discovery call and pricing at that point. But now what I find scarier is having a repricing conversation when they're already a client. So I'd much prefer to price correctly initially and be happy, rather than, and also I remember back to the time where I moved over from hourly rate to a monthly fee, and that was a difficult conversation. So it's actually easier to set this up now and set the precedent and set out your stall, and people know what you're about. It makes it easier than having those different conversations later on. We've got a question here, Jason. Have you worked with different pricing tiers, different prices for different levels of categories and service, and has that worked?
Right. The answer is yes, I have done that in my previous life. In my previous practice, I did do that. So I think I can't remember who I followed. I think a long time ago, there was a guy called Mark Wickersham, and he was, he's a real pricing guru. And I'm friends with Mark. I know him quite well. I think he lives in Portugal now. But in my old life, in my first practice, he was my mentor, Mark Wickersham, and he would always advocate the bronze, silver, gold method of pricing. And yes, I did try that for a while. And there is one advantage to that, is that if you present the client with bronze, silver, and gold, for some reason, whether it's psychological or not, they don't want to look cheap, so they'll never choose the bronze option. Whatever I quoted, bronze, silver, gold, 9 times out of 10 they would go for the silver option. So that can work, definitely. But then I think the disadvantage of that is that you're suddenly bombarding the client with more and more figures.
Yeah, and also I feel like you're starting off the conversation of like, this is what you could have. The gold service is amazing, but you can't afford that. So here's a little less service, where I'd prefer to say, this is the service you need.
Yeah.
If you can't afford all of that service, let's put it back until you can. Like, let's take some elements out and you get to design what's right for you. Whereas I feel like when it's a bit of a bundle, I sometimes feel like, oh, I really want that, I just can't afford it. And then you already feel like you've lost out, or the client feels like they've lost out at the beginning.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's a better option, to sort of tailor the package, if you like, tailor that one package, rather than to say, I mean, the bronze service, well, bronze comes last. Is this a bit of a rubbish package, so I better have the silver one? And it's not a rubbish package at all, but maybe prospects might get that impression, so they will go for the middle package, which is great as far as we're concerned. But I don't know. I just think psychologically I would probably avoid doing that now. In the old days, in sort of 2003, 4, 5, that maybe worked really well. But
I think it did. I think it's that transparency, isn't it, at these days? I think we want it to be a really good exchange. Like this, we want to give you our best work, and you pay for, this is what you need to pay to get that. And I think that feels better. It feels like we know that people will go for the silver. So for me, it feels like it's a bit out of integrity. Like we're trying to do them over a bit. And it feels like car salesman kind of tactics. So I agree.
One other thing I would say is, and I'm sure all your guys are using it, but it's Go Cardless. Go Cardless is fantastic. So I've got most of our clients, I would say, on direct debit now. I have a few sticklers that won't go direct debit. They'd rather pay the annual fee. But and another shout for Go Proposal is the alignment fee. That is such a difficult thing to do, especially for accountants. If you're taking on a limited company halfway through the year, when do you start the direct debit? How much is the direct debit? Is it 1/12? Is it, do you charge them an alignment fee? And that's what we try and do now. So regardless of when we take the client on, the first year that we're doing, regardless of how far we are into that year, we will charge an alignment fee to bring us up to date, and then they'll pay 1/12 sort of going forward from there. So we always base our fees of being in that accounting year, if that makes sense. So the client will pay the 12 installments inside that accounting year. So by the time we come to prepare the accounts, we've got full payment for that year.
And it's revolutionary, isn't it? It really is, because I remember how I used to price, and raising that invoice at the end of the year when you've done all the work, you've put all of that in, and then they'll decide when and if they pay you. And whereas the Go Cardless, we've just had our monthly DD, the big one, drop into the bank today, and it's very nice when all of the fees are in for the month, and we can get on with doing the work without doing chasing and credit control and things like that.
And that's the one other thing, Joe. We have 0 debtors. So I'll either offer the client the alignment fee, then monthly direct debit, or if they don't want to do direct debit, then I'll request payment up front. And if they do pay up front, I will give them a 10% discount if they pay up front. But although I'm losing 10% there, I think I'd rather have that than debtors. So our balance sheet says debtors 0, and it's been like that for a long time now.
That's amazing. That's amazing, Jason. Just on the Go Cardless point, yes, I wasn't going to bring it up, but I have seen some talk in the Go Proposal community about somebody that had 4 years worth of fees claimed back from Go Cardless on the direct debit scheme, which is a bit of a worry. So there is some talk going on about that at the moment. But I use it as well, and I know a lot of us do, and it has been a great option. And maybe there's something that we need to be, and I'm sure Go Proposal are going to go on it and maybe put something in the T's and C's and things about that. But that is the direct debit scheme. There is that option of clawbacks. I would never use it myself, so I think lots of us wouldn't even think about it. But so we need to be aware of that. But Jason, can I just say, this has been such a great conversation. Firstly, it's so nice.
45 minutes, Jo, haven't we?
I know, but I said, like, let's just aim, like, let's get to 20. There's only 2.
No, yeah.
We could chat forever, and we could carry on for a really long time.
Definitely.
It's so nice to chat to you. So nice to get a guy's perspective as well, from the bookkeeping, and accountancy point of view.
Sure.
I know that there are less guys in this space, but it's so nice.
I know.
Jason, you're such a nice guy, and you're so open with your knowledge and your experience, which is lovely. So if people want to know more about you, connect with you, how would they do so?
So I've got a new Linktree page. I'll just really quickly mention that. I don't know if you've heard of Linktree, Jo.
Yes.
Linktree is brilliant. It enables you to have all different links in one place, and it's fantastic. So mine is at jasonblackman.me, jasonblackman.me, and that's to my Linktree page, and that gives a link to our company website. And it gives a link to my YouTube channel, which I'm going to start again. I vowed to myself, after I talked to Jo, I'm now going to start uploading my weekly videos, because my YouTube channel's got lots and lots of videos on, and I'm really proud of it, but I haven't posted for so long. So I've learned with YouTube, you need to be consistent. So I'm going to start posting weekly videos, but there's a link to my YouTube channel on the jasonblackman.me as well. And there's a little button there if anyone wants to sort of drop me a message. So it'd be nice to hear from anyone.
Oh, thank you so much, Jason. Thank you so much. Lots of love in the comments, and thanking you for a great podcast.
Brilliant. Enjoyed it. Really good. Thank you, Jo.
Oh, thank you. Okay, everyone. Well, that's it for this week. We will see you again next week. Have a great week. And go and check out Jason's YouTube channel. See you later. Bye.
Bye.